Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with your hosts Jasmine Cronetten and Alan Corey, where we learn the strategies of top producing real estate agents so you have the tools to upgrade your own real estate career.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Agent Upgrade Podcast with Alan and Jasmine. Good to see you again, Jasmine.
Good to see you, Alan. Always a highlight of my week. We get to chat with interesting people about interesting business ideas.
Yeah. I always come into these really excited, and then I leave very motivated and sort of like an action plan for the week a lot of times. So, it's fun, and I always like to learn. I'm always want to be in knowledge acquisition mode and learning what other people are doing. Doesn't mean I'm going to do exactly what they do, but it's interesting to know, oh, I could do that part, and that's not for me or my personality, but I can do this, and I should be doing that better, or that's an improvement. Like I just love learning, and I'm probably a rare person, and I love negative feedback. So if people are saying, hey, I'm doing this wrong, I'd rather hear that than people telling me I'm doing things right, because I feel like some people just say that. I don't believe them. Hey, you're doing it right. Like, oh, hey, you're doing great. Like, I just feel like that's a default answer. Like, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. Like, are you really doing fine? Or that's just your default answer. So if someone gives negative feedback, I feel like they've really thought about it. It really affected them and made them feel a certain way. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't really know where.
I think it's interesting. I feel like I always, whenever we have surveys that our clients fill out, and whenever there is a survey that, doesn't come back as a 10 out of 10, but comes back as a, 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, I'm like, those are the people that I'm absolutely picking up the phone right then and there.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's talk about it. I want to understand what happened. What could I have done better? Well, there was this thing you could have done better. Like, that's like, I always feel like the one person that actually speaks out represents, hundreds of people that didn't. Maybe there was a big flaw in my system that I just didn't realize that, this particular message that I automatically send out every time a new loan application comes in seemed really impersonal, or whatever that is. I want to know it as opposed to just kind of rinse and repeat. And I honestly think that was one of the experiences that we had as, realtor lender early on, where you were brutally honest with me about my business. And at first I was like, okay, thank you, I think. But it did help me step up. It did help me clean that up and so I think that my other real estate partners will really appreciate the fact that you spoke up and you said, hey, this is not how it should be done. But I think there is also, like, you have to come, when you're giving feedback, you have to come from a place of like really caring and loving the person. Like when somebody just comes at you with like, just, you suck, like, okay, well, that's
Yeah.
let me, how do I fix that?
The way I look at it is, like, if I don't care about you, I'm not giving you feedback. Like I tell my kids this, like in sports, like if the coach is yelling at you and getting on top of you because you're not in the right position or your feet aren't moving fast enough or whatever, it means he cares. When they start ignoring you and letting you make mistakes, that means they don't care anymore. So like it's a weird sign of affection, I guess. But so if I'm giving negative feedback, it's like, I want you to do better. And but I understand not everyone wants to hear it. It's not always well received. I come off looking like a jerk sometimes, but it always is honestly trying to come from a good place. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
so,
it.
Yeah. So I think there's a long way of saying those Zillow reviews, soliciting them after a closing, or whether it's on your Google business page or Facebook group, however an agent gets their realtor or their reviews post closing. Don't just delete the negative ones. Like use that as a wake up call, and hopefully you don't have very many negative ones. But
I had a situation which is one of the which is, I'm actually very grateful for at this point, because I had a client, this was probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago at this point, before I was in a regular habit of asking people for Zillow reviews, for Google reviews. In my post closing surveys, I had a client who We actually got him to closing on time, but there was an issue with, we had to change the loan program because of his income type of situation, and so he was really really upset about that. But in to the point where he posted a review on every site. Like, I mean, every site. And not only did he post a review of on every single site, he also logged in as his boyfriend, and then he logged in as his dad and
Oh,
posted back
three negative reviews on every site for
negative
the
reviews
same thing.
per
Yeah.
site. And so once that happened, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't just be like, well, I'm just going to have 3 0-star reviews on every single online platform. And so
Right.
that got me motivated to, like, okay, I have to really seriously, even though I couldn't I couldn't repair that particular situation, because he wasn't really willing to, to work with me on coming to a happy place together. But I feel like I just did the best I could from that, and I started now building. Now when you look up we have a lot of both Google and Zillow reviews and such. So, but yeah, it's interesting. But that's one of those things that you have to do. You have to keep working on a business, and you have to keep wanting to get better.
No, I agree. And it's all important. All feedback's important. So take it with a grain of salt. And wanted to do something different with this show rather than have a guest. I found an article that's called the top 10 traits of a real estate agent. This was in the Kaplan Real Estate Education website from January 2019. I think it still holds up true. And I think that just running down this top 10 list is just sort of also another reminder of what people look for in a real estate agent, and then sort of aligning the way you work and within these sort of top 10 traits, and making sure that you're doing the best that you can, and you're representing your career and your field the best you can, and that people want to use you and refer you and write great reviews. So to get started, number 10 on the top 10 traits of a real estate agent is a problem solver mindset. I think, yeah. I almost think this is almost our entire job is solving problems. Yeah. The most frustrated I ever get is if I'm working with an agent on the listings, I'm the buyer's agent listing it, and I ask a question, and they'll be like, "Hey, can you find out whatever the HOA fees are or whatever?" And they'll just say, "Oh, I don't know." And it's, or something specific about the house. Can you tell me when the roof was installed? I don't know. And it's like, okay, I don't know either, which is why I'm calling you. I can't call your client directly to get these answers. Will you help me solve this problem? I don't understand why. Don't you want to sell your house? Don't you these are the hurdles. These are the 3 or 4 questions my clients need answered to put a strong offer in. I just need your help. And just an I don't know, and then they don't respond. That's not a problem solving mindset at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, I feel like obviously the longer you are in the business, the better you get at the problem solving. But it's also, there is an aspect to what I've noticed is it's a skill where you need to learn how to ask the same question differently. Sometimes that's the difference between getting a deal done and not, because if you don't ask the right question, you're not going to get the right answer. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a weird problem solving puzzle thing. It's like, okay, well, the seller does not want to sign an FHA, a mandatory clause, the end, right? Versus looking at it like, okay, how can we get to this place? Like, what is it that the seller wants? So you could get into this place, kind of like you were saying, they don't want to sign it, the end, versus asking the follow-up question of like, what is it that they're trying to achieve? What is it that they're afraid of? What can we do to get to a different answer? right? Because if it's like, oh, they don't want you to back out of the contract 30 days, 30 days into the deal, like, can we work through that and come up with a different solution? So I think just being really, really creative with how to come up with, whatever the answer is, just asking the question many different ways. I know that in particular, when it comes to condos are like super hard as of this year. They're much harder to get approved and so forth. And sometimes you have to talk to the HOA. And when you're talking to the HOA, most of the time these HOAs are just people that are part of a board, and now they're kind of stuck answering all these crazy questions, right? And so sometimes you have to ask them the same question like 14 different ways
Right.
until you actually get there. So just stay kind of focused, and problem solving, I think, to me is sometimes unless you have to get enough information to make a good decision to help clients.
Yeah. And so to circle back to like those sort of questions, like if an agent's listening and be like, I don't know what the HOA is. I don't know what when roof was installed. What would be helpful is, hey, I went to the client and, they don't know either, but when they bought the house 6 years ago, they have, the roof was already there and they have not replaced it. So, that's an answer in that it's at least 6 years old, right? That's better than I don't know. They've owned it for 20 years. Have they ever replaced the roof? No. Okay. So we know it's older than 20 years old. Like that is helpful, sort of information. Or, hey, they looked and when they bought the house, they found the old disclosures. That old disclosure says the roof is this old. Or we reached out to the HOA. They recently raised the prices. This was what their last bill was last year or whatever. Like that, you don't have to have the exact answer, but it's just some context, some sort of stuff, that could just get us over the hump of sort of these points. Like I'm not just asking the question for my own, knowledge. A lot of these times I'm asking because my client had these questions and I want to get them back, the correct answer or just some information so they don't feel like I'm just ignoring the request. So that is number 10, a problem solver mindset. And this also can, even after under contract, hey, how are we going to solve this negotiation, this issue, this lending issue, this appraisal issue, moving out on time issue? Like you're just constant problem solving. I feel like that's what we get paid for, and sort of clean it up and make it look smooth. And if you're doing a really good job as an agent, I feel like your clients don't even know that there was problems because you took care of it and handled it and it never even made it to them. So I think that's why a lot of people think being a real estate agent is easy and super easy because of that.
I think one of my coaches a long time ago would tell me, when things get really tough, you got to put on your combat boots. This is why you make the big bucks. Go out, make it happen, solve the problem, right? So when things get tough, that's when you get to shine, and that's when you really got to step up and be like, all right, I'm here for the problem, bring it on. Right. I can figure it out.
All right, let's move on to number 9. The top 10 traits would make a great real estate agent according to Kaplan Real Estate Education. Number 9 is self-motivated entrepreneur.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, every agent is an entrepreneur, and typically they get in the business because they don't like a boss. They want to do things their own way, create their own schedule. But yeah, the self-motivated part is, are you going to be the one who makes the calls and doors knocks and the networking and social media posts or whatever it is? The self-motivated is key here because we're all entrepreneurs as real estate agents.
Yeah. So the self-motivation part, is it one of those things that you either have or you don't have? Is it like a switch you can turn on and off, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a skill you can cultivate. Like hold yourself accountable. At the end of the day, it's the sky's the limit on how much money you can make. It's how hard are you going to work and how are you going to get up and do what you you need to be doing without a boss telling you to do something or expecting you to have your butt in a chair at a certain time kind of thing. So,
yeah, I mean, I think also it's important to know how to just, I feel like especially this time and age, there is so many distractions, right? You can get stuck scrolling on TikTok, or you can find you know, you can get distracted by so many different things going on out there. And I think being self-motivated is like really like kind of harnessing the power of your mind and focusing on what it is that you really want to be achieving with your day. Like sometimes if you think about like maybe it's too much to think about like making a huge change, but like at least every morning make a game plan for that day. Right.
Yeah.
That's like that's something that I've done since I was like 12 years old. I used to have like these little yellow sticky pads and I love the little check boxes. And I would be like, I'm going to wash my laundry and I'm going to do my homework. So just making the game plan for the day and then taking it one day at a time and then kind of building on like, the self-motivation of staying focused. It's really about focus, really about being able to focus on your goals.
Yeah. And following through, like if you say you're going to do something, do it. You're just hurting yourself. You're lying to yourself. You're not holding yourself accountable. And, obviously that's going to affect anyone's business. If you're the sole employee, the sole, in charge of things, and you should be doing things and you're not doing it. You can time block your calendar. Some people have success by doing that. 2 hours every week or day. They say, I'm not going to check email. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And if you're the type of personality that can, trick yourself into doing certain things like that, go for it. Whatever it takes to get done. Like no one's judging you, but it's usually what they say, it's consistency that leads to results rather than sort of like
having the most brilliant idea.
Yeah, the most brilliant. Yeah, like all the ideas to be successful, we've covered. It's just following through and consistently doing it, not doing it for a week, not doing it for 6 weeks, but doing it for 6 months and then a year and then 3 years. And if you just are consistent, success, whatever you choose to do, whatever sort of marketing is for you is the way to go. So yeah, self-motivated entrepreneur, huge on the list. Number 8, top 10 traits, honesty and integrity. I think this is two points to look at this here. Honesty and integrity, obviously with your clients, they have to trust you and you have to be good and worthy, trustworthy. But I think your relationships, excuse me, with other agents is super important. Like just being honest and having some integrity and returning calls in time, giving back information, just sort of being cordial on negotiations. Doesn't mean you're not representing your client, but look, there's a human on the other side, and that's going to win you a lot of deals because people like working with you on the other side. They're going to select your offer more often than an agent who is difficult or has been known to lie or makes up things and just basically adding stress to situations that don't need it.
Yeah, I think just cultivating that reputation for yourself, right, as well. When people know that, if somebody leaves you a message before the end of business day, you will return your calls every day. Like, that was one of the first things that one of my brokers taught me when I got into the business is like, always return your calls before you leave for the day. It's a simple little thing, but it's just one of those things where it's absolutely like you have to have integrity to be able to be successful in this business. Because if people feel like, oh, well, yeah, Alan told me there was an offer coming, but then the offer never comes, right? Now all of a sudden, yeah, guess what? Next time you have a conversation with that client or with that agent on the other side, you just lost all your cool points. Like they're gonna be like, whatever Alan says, take it with a grain of salt. It's I think that falls under the umbrella of like small promises kept, right?
Yeah.
You tell a client, I'm going to call you back in an hour. Call them back in an hour, right? Because that builds trust, because now they know whenever Alan says he's going to call me back in an hour, he calls me back in an hour, right? It's like over and over throughout the process, as you're building your career. What a small promise is kept. Just keep that in mind. I think that's how you build integrity. And
yeah, if for something little like that, if you follow through, then they're going to trust you that you're going to follow through on the big stuff too.
Big stuff as well.
Yeah. No, I like that. All right, 7, hustle and tenacity. to me, yeah, I this was sort of my strength when I think I started. It was like I had nothing but time, right? So I would return calls. I wouldn't wait an hour, like instantly. I'd pick up calls. I'd get answers. I have these questions. I'd go get them and call them back like immediately. I was just on it, and um, I think I just felt like I'd lose the business because another agent would be out hustle me or get the answers first or
Mhm,
things like that.
mhm.
But I just felt very productive too at the same time because I was getting these answers and getting feedback and it allowed for my clients to make decisions faster. Well, I wasn't rushing them, but they're worried. Oh, I want to know where's this property line is, whatever. But if I get that answer in 15 seconds, that's now not something that they're going to go to bed worrying about, sleeping about, adding to all these anxiety and concerns. It's that's been solved. What else do you have? What other questions do you have?
Yeah.
Um, and returning calls. A lot of times it's you know agents will get a call. Hey, I saw your sign, or I have something else, and then they'll call them back the next day, and they're like, oh, sorry, you didn't call me back, so I went with another real estate agent, and now I want to make an offer with this real estate agent. I tried to work directly with you, but you were slow to get back to me. Like that sort of hustle and that quick response time, I think, can cut out a lot of deals for people.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Six. This is excuse me. All right, number six: interest in houses and architecture. Top 10 traits of real estate agents.
Cool.
I mean, yeah, I think you should be interested in what you're selling, for sure, right? That almost shouldn't even be said, but I don't expect everyone to have an interest in architecture, but um, I think knowledge of it is fine.
Yeah. I think you need to be able to walk in and be like, "Oh, this is a Neil Reed home," right? Like you need
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah, famous architect in the 20s and 30s here in Atlanta, but you could also, having a bunch of agents on my team, I know one who's really interested in landscaping and knows all the plants and all the flowers and everything. And that's just exciting to walk up to the house. Oh, that's a Japanese maple, and that's that, and that's that. Like it could be an architecture, it could be the windows, it could be the, to me, it's opportunity. Like I like saying, hey, we can extend this house 2,000 square feet according to lot coverage. You can, I try to maximize the dollar and turn every house into like an investment. Hey, you can renovate this basement and make it an ADU unit for some real, Airbnb. To me, I like to. That's just exciting. No one asked me to do this stuff. It's just, oh, if I had this property, this is what I would do to maximize the dollar amount or whatever. So I think there's got to, some people love the home renovation shows. A lot of agents say that's why they get into it because the home, but that's fine. Just share your like that passion, whatever that aspect is of a home or architecture or a house like that. Your clients pick up on that, and then they get excited about the house. They might not share the same thing about landscaping, but the fact that you're excited about it makes them excited about it. And so I think you just have to find one thing you really, really like. It could be the handymanship, the workmanship, the materials that were used. Find something that you're passionate about, and I think it'll just ooze out of you and make you're not selling the house, but you're educating them on the house, and that sometimes helps get the house sold.
I like that one.
Yeah. Okay. We're going through the top 10 traits of a real estate agent. I am now on number 5.
Engaging personality.
Yeah, engaging personality. Yeah, your sales, right? You can't be boring. You've got to be someone who can talk to strangers. You can be introverted and be successful. Obviously, you have to be an engaging personality over email or text message or something like that. But people are going to want to be excited to work with you, and they need to know you, and people aren't going to know you or remember you if you're not having some sort of engaging personality.
Yeah. And I think that also spills into how you present yourself, right? Like, everything from the way you dress to, like, have a clean car. You want to, you want to just come across as somebody that's pulled together and professional. And of course, yes, you need to have a great personality, but it also spills into like all these different things feed into how people, respond to you.
Right.
And so,
Right.
and, sometimes I think that, um, sometimes I think that like being, I hate to say this, but like being, you know, overly protective of your client's interest, like where you're like, oh, I want to warn them about every single possible thing that can go wrong with every home. I think that might come across as, a little bit of a, not very engaging
Right. Right.
personality. If
Right.
you're
Right.
just like, oh, well, this could go wrong and that could go wrong and all these
Debbie
things
Downer.
like
You
that.
don't want to
Yeah.
be a Debbie Downer. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be that way. I think you would just want to be, I think that I in my worldview, like I love to leave every client interaction in, I want to leave the person that I was interacting with in a better place. Like I want to leave them, even though we're dealing with money and it's stressful and there's so many things going on, I want to feel like when I hang up with a client that they feel just a little bit more uplifted, like that I just upgraded their mindset or their their mood, I should say, a little bit, right? They were like, oh yeah, I got to talk to Jazz. That was kind of fun. We talked about blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, and by the way, I need to bring $20,000 to closing, right? Yes, that was there, but at the same time, I think that just part of like wanting to uplift and
It
loving.
makes them want to talk to you more because they
Yeah,
feel that, right? And they
yeah,
get excited and energized.
yeah,
It's so they're not, yeah, they'd be excited to answer the phone call from their agent or their
yeah,
lender for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 4, attention to detail. This is
Yeah.
just
That's a good
writing
one.
contracts, right?
Oof.
Um, Obviously details matter. Thankfully, I think most of us use the realtor forms that are basically a template that you can't change, and you just filling in some blanks. But those blanks are obviously going to be very important. Special stipulations, things like that. Um, Dates are huge. That's why I would say my weakness is attention to detail. And one of the reasons I like working with you, Jasmine, is like your CRM does such a great job giving everyone the dates and the reminders and the heads up. Also have transaction management software that does that too, so it's double sided. And these are all sort of safety nets for what I know is my weakness. And so it's going to be impossible to be a perfect 10 out of 10 on all these. So it's recognizing where you need help and how you're going to overcome that, and then also going in all in on your strengths, and seeing where what your strengths are, and really make that sort of your signature part of doing a transaction with you.
And also knowing that if details are not your strength, then you know that you do need to read that email, one or two times before you send it, right? Like
Right.
literally, like stop and read all the dates, all the times. What like if you know that that's not your strength, then you need to slow down on those important like I can't tell you like every single like I do that to myself all the time. Anytime I'm emailing a client with numbers, like I'll look at it and then I'll look at the numbers again and then I'll look at the numbers again and I'm like, there's no room for error, especially when I'm telling somebody you have to bring 20,000. Is it 22,000 or 20,000? Like I can't just be like, oh, I thought it's a 20,000, but it actually, like you've got
Yeah.
to slow yourself down. If you know it's your weakness, then just really slow down and pay attention, pay extra attention before you fire off that contract, before you fire off that amendment, like because there is so much at risk, especially when it comes to contracts.
Yeah. And your clients are paying attention to detail in those emails and those numbers. And so, you've got to just be aligned and make sure that you guys are on the same page for sure. Okay, so far in our top 10 list, we've got problem solver mindset, self-motivated entrepreneur, honesty and integrity, hustle and tenacity, interest in houses and architecture, engaging personality, attention to detail. Now we're at the bottom 3. I don't think these are in any specific order, but the next one in our list, number 3, is understand the local housing market. And I think that is also a big part of our job, is like what's going on, like what's going on with interest rates, what's going on with housing prices, how much can a one bedroom go for in this zip code, or a house or townhome and near the subway stop, whatever it is.
Oh,
Like that's local knowledge. If you don't know that, who else? Like I promise you, another real estate agent does know that stuff.
yeah.
But that, to me, that should also be exciting for you to know this stuff and to know what's going on and what the prices and the values and what's being built, the developments, because all this affects what what we can sell and how much we can sell it for. And um, we're supposed to be local experts, so yeah, understanding the local housing market, I think, falls in line with that.
What are your thoughts on like can you think of any like good places or resources for agents to like look at, houses that have been days on the market or any of those types of stats, so that they can, I mean, it's
MLS has a lot of data, a lot of tools. You can set up alerts. You can run sort of data analysis to get all that stuff. The most basic stuff, sort of housing trends and prices and days on market, that's just a default setting on my homepage. I never set it up, but I assumed the MLS system did because it's so common. Zillow does, they've got a blog, they've got a lot of updates. You can subscribe to it, you can just check it out. But that locally, there's going to be websites. It used to be Curbed, was one of my favorite websites.
sad they're gone here
yeah,
and at least.
But Urbanize is sort of trying to take over sort of that missing piece. So check out the blog Urbanize. It's supposed to be like similar stuff that Curb is. There's typically, if you join local Facebook groups, people are going to be posting articles left, right, and center from certain bloggers and websites that are all local. Just see where those people are getting their information from, and then you sort of become the data dispenser. You get it first, and then you post about it, kind of thing. Talking to other real estate agents is obviously good. Going to networking meetups, but Twitter and Instagram, everything is instant on social media. So any hot clickbaity item about local developments, typically I find on social media first, even though I have a routine of reading real estate stuff every night when I go to bed. I've got a little magazine subscription on my iPhone, but a lot of the stuff I've already heard about before it even came to me. But knowing your local housing market, you've got to be able to be that person at a cocktail party. Like I feel terrible if someone's like, oh, about this new development that's going on whatever, North and Fourth or whatever it is. And if I don't, I feel like, man, I'm letting this person down. They're not even in real estate and they know more about it and they're telling me about it. I hate being in that position. So I always like to have some sort of reference, or if someone tells me something I don't know about, I take a note and I go research it on my own, because I need to have my finger on the pulse. I feel like that is my, part of my brand and what I want to be known as. And hey, oh, you want to know what's going on? Call Alan. You want to know what's going over there? Call Alan. And I want to be able to have answers. So
Yeah.
That bringing up to the number 2 in the list of top traits of top agents: build a network of connections. Just like any business, I think it's who you know. So your sphere of influence, that these could be not just clients, a network of clients, network of vendors, network of other entrepreneurs, movers and shakers and lenders and attorneys. I think, part of what I sell is my network, my extended network, to get things done, because I'm not going to be the mold remediator in your house, but I can tell you the best one that I know. So it's having those network connections, I think, is very important, and we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah, and I also think I feel like very few agents have relationships with appraisers. And I think that, taking an appraiser out to lunch, you can learn so much. You can learn so much from an appraiser. Same thing with a closing attorney, take closing attorney out to lunch and ask them all the scary questions that maybe you don't understand on the closing disclosure or the final settlement statement, and what do all these pluses and minuses look like. And now all of a sudden you have a good relationship with an attorney and an appraiser, and these are people that you're really, really going to need to lean on. Not necessarily you're going to get business from them, but it's just a good thing to have in your network.
Right. Yeah.
Like people that can help you, that can save your butt. Have a good lender on speed dial.
Yeah.
That's,
Totally.
it's a difference between spending, 3 weeks and schlepping somebody around who can't get pre-approved versus, knowing that your clients are ready to go.
Yeah. And I that person, if you take them out to lunch, they're going to be quicker to pick up your phone call, respond to your email, because it's now a personal relationship and not just strictly business.
Yeah. Same thing with home inspectors, same idea there.
All right. So this brings us to number one. And I'm not sure if it's a countdown or not, but I feel like this number one is sort of all encompassing of what we've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
It says, knowledge is power. That's what is important in the top 10 trait of a real estate agent, staying up to date on the latest topics in real estate and local market, which I feel like is sort of what we've talked about in terms of, interest in housing and architecture, attention to detail, understanding the local housing market. So, it's worth repeating. Knowledge is important. And that's always where I came from. I always wanted to have knowledge. I wanted to have knowledge about new construction. And I was like, hey, I got to go build my own house. I want to know knowledge about short-term rentals because I have clients who do short rentals. Okay, I got to go do my own short-term rentals. I want to have knowledge about investing in multifamilies and buying an apartment building. Like, how can I, teach others or help others if I'm not doing it myself? And so I always push new agents, and I know it's very difficult and to say, man, you got to go buy your own house. Like you're going to learn so much more on the process, like the questions a mortgage lender is going to ask you and what it feels like to wait until that appraisal comes in, that nervous energy and all the stuff that you don't really realize until you go through it yourself and you're the buyer or you're the seller, that you're like, oh, okay, now,
now I get it.
Yeah. Like I moved recently and just hiring the moving trucks and disrupting my life and what are we going to do with the pets and all this stuff that like, oh, I forgot this is, I'm never around for that. I'm not standing there while they're packing the moving truck. And I'm like, oh, this is something to be aware of what they're going through and find ways to help them and alleviate the sort of pain. But to me, it's just doing it yourself is the best way to get the knowledge.
Yeah, when I was a brand new loan officer, one of the things that I was taught is you wake up every day and read guidelines. It sounds like the most boring thing on the planet, but knowledge is power. I mean, like, talk about knowing how to solve problems. If you read guidelines, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA, USDA guidelines are some of the most boring freaking things on the planet. But guess what? Like when that straw buyer situation pops up and you're like, you know what? I read about that 3 years ago. I remember that. So reading guidelines and just, I don't know if there is an equivalent in real estate to reading guidelines.
Well,
but,
Yeah, no, I had an agent recently ask me some questions and I was like, this is in that default purchase and sale agreement. We call it the GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors. And it's like, most agents only read the first 2 pages, and that's where all the blanks are. And I was like, no, you've got to at least once a year read through all the small fine print text in the back, because that's what you're getting every client to sign. You need to know that inside and out. And it's easy because it only changes once a year and there's just small tweaks. So read it once, get familiar with it. And then if a question pops up, you might not immediately know the answer, but you're like, oh, I know that's in the contract. Let me look it up and get back to you on those answers, kind of thing. But I think at least annual, if not more frequently, read through of the purchase sale agreement that you use time and time and time again is super important.
Super important. Yeah, I've become one of the weird things that I do on Facebook is that I'm part of, like, if there is an underwriting group on Facebook, I'm a part of it because I love to see underwriters talk back and forth to each other about, like, well, this FHA case, blah, blah, blah thing came up and this, this, like all these, the way I love knowing how underwriters think and read. And because ultimately underwriters are always, there is a human element to it, right? You can interpret it the way you see it. And so like have like 10 or 20 underwriters, there was like the one that came up this morning was like, okay, so how we have an FHA buyer and it's like his brother-in-law's, so-and-so, somebody that's a person of interest, kind of a friend of a friend sort of a thing that's gifting the money, right? And how do we prove that this person has an actual interest in our buyer and for a long time? And so the underwriters were just going on and on and on about different ways that you can, prove that this is somebody that you've had a friendship with for a really long time and what they would accept and what they wouldn't. And I find that fascinating because I'm like, every single scenario, every single time somebody solves this problem for me, I'm like, I'm taking notes. Like, I'm like, okay, that's how we can do that. That's how we can do that. And I've been in this business for 20 years. Like I've seen pretty much,
that's the same with me in real estate investing forums. It's, hey, a lot of it is real estate agents, but it's typically people who have a lot of reps in purchasing properties, like a first-time home buyer. They might ask a question here and there, but it's not the right language or it's just very basic. But a real estate investor who has a problem and asking for advice, like that's someone who's experienced. And so to me, I learned so much watching other people's questions and, I've never encountered that, but I want to know now the answer to that. And I read all the questions.
Get a commercial loan on that? What? I never heard of that. So you figure it out.
And so it's sort of like getting those reps in, but I'm paying attention to other people's reps and because I might have that problem, a client might have that problem. And it's so much better to instantly know an answer and be like, hey, I've seen this before. And the way it was solved was XYZ. It wasn't my problem. It was someone on Facebook, but that's honest truth. Like, hey, I've seen this before. This is how we can solve it. This is what the gotchas, and this is the stuff that we want to happen. And I've heard quotes from this amount to this amount, depending on what city you're in. And so like I have some context and backstory. I'm not saying this is the exact way of doing it, but the fact that I have heard of this problem before gives comfort to your clients, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it all kind of sums it all up, the knowledge and the hustle and self-motivation. Like you have to stay curious. You have to be interested in what you're selling. It's like, it's not just like, this is not a job that you just clock in and clock out of. Like you gotta really be in it. And have fun with it too.
I think it goes a long way if it doesn't feel like work. I think.
Then it's interesting, and then I love coming to work. I mean, there's always something new. There's always new clients.
Every day's different. Every day, that's what I like about it. Yeah.
Not to mention, like I feel like what we do is just, we are actually like helping make people's lives so dramatically, incredibly much better. It's like we're not sitting there making paper clips or, something that just, you would have to really grasp at straws to to feel like you're actually making an impact in somebody's life. I feel like we're making making dreams come true and helping people build wealth. And it's a good gig. I love it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Agent Upgrade. I think we should do this more regularly where we kind of cover some of these articles that we're reading every day and just applying it to our life and a quick check-in. We're halfway through the year. I think it's a good check-in on what makes a good real estate agent. So until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in to Agent Upgrade. Please leave your reviews for us. Those are huge. We talked about reviews for real estate agents. Your reviews on our podcast is great. So wherever you're listening, please drop us a review with your feedback, good and bad, and we'll take it into consideration. Thanks so much, guys.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Agent Upgrade podcast. If you are an agent looking for a new mortgage lender, start with Jasmine at jasmineteam.com. If you want to learn about real estate investing and working with investors, check in with Alan at thehouseofac.com. See you next time on Agent Upgrade.